Recording in progress.
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning to our staff. Good morning to the Department of Health that has joined us, and morning to also other stakeholders. I see some of the journalists who have logged in and other interested parties to the work that we are going to do. May I request that we start our meeting with a moment of silence, reflections, and meditation. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, honorable members, and welcome to all of you. There are some staff members from Parliament that I will introduce in the due course of this meeting. But let me start by welcoming you in this meeting, which is a continuation of what we started or was started by some of the honorable members in the 6th Parliament, the issues of the bill, the tobacco and the electronic products bill. But let me then, for now, invite Ms. Majalamba so that we know what we are doing to reflect, or whoever is assisting her, just reflect what is there on the agenda. Then we'll take items as they appear after we have actually reflected. Show the agenda, and maybe while that is coming up, Ms. Majalamba, you will also indicate whether we do form a quorum, the members who are present, and the apologies that might have been sent to you also. Thank you. All right. Honorable members, as we start this meeting, and I've welcomed you, we will then give after this to Ms. Majalamba, who will then be able to indicate who is present and not present in the meeting. I will then come back to give you an update on what will happen now that we're at this level of the bill, and then maybe a short discussion. We would have one presentation today of one of the interested party, and then the discussion thereof will also indicate when they have logged in or if they are here as to how much time we allocate to them, and then a discussion, then we will then adjourn. May I therefore request that I get an indication from honorable members if this is a workable agenda. We had invited 3, one has managed to come through to present, so we'll go on anyway. Can I request you to reflect and approve this agenda for this meeting, honorable members? Okay, I can't see any hands raised.
Chairperson.
Yeah, there's yes, Ms. Sinne.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members and everyone in the meeting. Chair, I went through the agenda and I want to propose for the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sinne. Move for the adoption of the agenda. I see a couple of hands, and I think there's honorable members, maybe Honorable Clark, Honorable Peko, Honorable Zungula, who would have wanted to second that. Any of them giving? Let me ask Honorable Clark. I don't know which hand came first.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm prepared to second the agenda. I just wanted to ask you, the people that were supposed to come and present here, the stakeholders that did not come today, I just want to know if they had ample time to prepare for this meeting. In order
I'll come to that. Let's, for now, is an agenda to be seconded. I'll come to that. There's an update that I have. So maybe that request is coming in under that slot, yes. Do you second the agenda?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will deal with that part under that. So I will take it that other hands will be entertained once we start discussions. Thanks, Honorable Zungula, Honorable Taiko. We'll come back to you once we start discussions. Ms. Majalamba.
Chair.
There's no clarity to be given for now. I'll come to that, similar to what Honorable Clark has come. Can you just wait a bit until we adopted the agenda?
You know,
Then
it's on the
unless-
agenda. It's on the agenda, Chair.
Yes.
If it could be flighted, because I wanted to find out the part that is the discussion after you present an update. Is it a discussion as to where the process is now and what's then to follow? That's the first clarity. The second clarity is that after the presentation of the stakeholder that is here, the discussion means we are going to basically engage with the stakeholder based on the presentation. That's what I needed clarity on. Thank you.
Hold on, as the agenda has been adopted, some of the members, the Honorable Zungula, have been on the bill discussion, so you could actually be appraised when that discussion comes in. Just hold on that process. Thank you very much. Ms. Machalamba.
Good morning and thank you, Chair. Present is Dr. Dlomo, Ms. Kleko, Ms. Shabangu, Ms. Sinne, Ms. Kumalo, Ms. Clark, Dr. Leroux, Mr. Mutubatsi, Mr. Mjadu, Ms. Mailola, and Ms. Mhlongo and Mr. Zungula. I've received apologies from Mr. Van Staden and Dr. Lipati. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We do form a quorum, therefore we can proceed, honorable members. After my presentation, in the absence of Honorable Van Staden, I'll ask Honorable Clark to probably be the first one to comment in terms of explaining further what I'm going to start. I'm on the item now that talks about the update of the process. I would want to borrow from the time one was in the 6th Parliament and we were doing an NHI bill. We completed the process of public hearings, which this committee has just completed now, by February 2020. Immediately after completion of that, COVID came. We were the first committee in Parliament to even begin to engage in the way we are doing virtual, and all other committees learned from us. In March, Parliament was like shut down, activities, no travel, no meetings. We then innovated and in the committee started engaging with those stakeholders who had written and said, because the process was, when we started public hearings in 2019, there were individuals, committees, and organizations that requested to come and make presentations to the portfolio committee, just like now they have been. In that situation, there were 128 organizations that requested to come and engage. This time around, there are 60 that have indicated their interest. So just to allay the members, that process is now closed. It was closed before we started in the 7th Parliament. When you start having a bill, as you go out, you then write to the citizens to say, we would want to, those who want to comment, to really apply and indicate. That process has a start and an end time. So that process was wrapped up. And at the time of wrapping it up, there were 60 institutions or individuals who wanted to come and make presentations. However, what then happened, fortunate for us, as Parliament has indicated, it was like almost closed down. There were a lot of other staff members like Ms. Machalamba who were available to assist the process of the public hearings and all the work that was there in that committee. They were assembled by the unit managers and they assisted us in analyzing what actually was there that had been submitted to us. Right now, this number of 60 may go up because they are busy now with the process of analyzing who else has actually said, I do support the bill, I don't support the bill, but however, I still wish to come and make presentations. That analysis is still going on in Parliament. So the number of 60, which were clearly those that just wrote and say, I want to come and make presentations, is the ball figure that we have. That number might go up as they continuously analyzing the other batches of work. That work cannot go as fast as we wish because all other committees are functioning. So there has been a team that has been assembled by the unit manager that Ms. Machalamba reports to, where I had a meeting with them 2 weeks ago. Hence, there was a bit of a delay in starting. And therefore, we then came to a conclusion to say, let us start with the 60 that we have. We will keep on updating you rather than to say, today, Ms. Machalamba and her team are presenting to us that there's 60 plus 10. We don't know how many more. But while they are analyzing, let us start nevertheless and listen to those South African stakeholders, committees, and institutions to date. The number might go up. Hence, there was a delay in that process. Hence, it answers some of the issues that were raised by Ms. Clark, that maybe when we then sent those that we wanted to invite, there's one that said it will come back to you to indicate whether we are coming or not. The other said there's a leadership of our unit that is out of the country. We would not be able to come in. So we want to indicate to you that we did not give them ample time, like maybe 2 weeks, or we gave them, I think Ms. Machamba correct me, 6 days to say, will you be available on the Wednesday to come in? So out of the 3 that were consulted, 1 is going to present to us. The other 2 said, I'll check whether we can. The other one said, our leadership, but not immediately. They reported, I think after 3 days, that our leadership is not complete in the country. We will then come back. We will request another date. So that is why then we said, let's go on nevertheless with 1 presentation today of that committee. So I wanted then to say to the honorable members, that is what I wanted to bring to your attention, to say the analysis is not complete. The process is going on. Nevertheless, we have 60 that we will start with. But then to plead with you to say the process may not go on forever and ever. What was an advantage in 2020 is that committees were not functional because of COVID, and we were on Zoom. So we were able to call meetings Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and probably including Fridays, listening to about 3 presentations per day. We don't have that luxury this time around because all committees are fully engaged. What I will plead with you is probably not to answer now, to consider is that almost all our Wednesdays will probably in the next few weeks be engaged with this process. I might as well request to the members that when the sitting in the House finishes at 5 on Tuesdays or Thursdays, we might request an hour later to take a presentation each day on a Tuesday and a Thursday. We might request members to make another sacrifice to travel a bit late on Fridays and take 1 or 2 presentations. We would not wish to interfere with the Mondays that it is known to be political parties' day. But all I'm saying is that to finish this 60 plus, we might have to actually do a bit more than just using only the Wednesdays. So it does come with a bit of a sacrifice, the committee working long hours. If we take Tuesdays and Thursdays, maybe just on the indication 6 o'clock, we might do 1 or 2 because the presenter, if they have logged in, they will usually give them 20 minutes to present. The committee members engage with the presentation. Thereafter, they come back to indicate and reply and respond for another 20 to 35 minutes. So each one takes another close to just over an hour. So we might find that if we do make sacrifices of Tuesdays and Thursdays, we might do 2-2, depending whether we really did finish at 5 or not at 8, like it is happening today. We will probably not want to do that on Wednesdays because Wednesdays we might have had about 2 or 3 presentations starting at 9 until about 1 in our Wednesdays. So let me pause there for now and say this is what I wanted to present to honorable members, and which might then present a debate or additions. I indicated that I would like to start with Honorable Clark because what I've talked about, she knows, as is a member who was there in the 6th administration and part of this committee and working on that. we will then take other hands after Honorable Clerk. I would then want to indicate that Honorable Clerk, we are number 1. Honorable Motuba, I think I see next one is Honorable Motubatsi. Those are the hands I've seen. Honorable Dr. Clark, Dr. Leroux. Number 4, Honorable Teko. Let me just keep on moving up. Oh gosh. After Honorable Teko, I must just check again here. Any other hand I may be missing after Honorable Teko? So far, Honorable Clark, Honorable Motubatsi, Honorable Leroux, Honorable Teko. What is number 5, Ms. Majalamba?
Mr. Zungula, Chair, and Ms. Kumalo.
Honorable Zungula, number 5. Number 6, Honorable Kumalo. Okay, honorable members, in that order, let us start. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm quite happy that we do that. We did that during the NHI to get finished with our work. Unfortunately, when you're working on a bill, there's a lot of work to be done according to process. So we certainly worked much longer hours while we were working on the NHI bill. So that's one issue. Then the second issue is that I would request that presenters are given ample time in order to prepare for presentations, because it's vitally important that we hear stakeholders' input, at our committee meeting. So if we can ensure that that happens. And then, Chairperson, I just wanted to find out, is NEDLAC going to come and present to our committee in terms of the outcomes of that meeting? Because I think that's vitally important for us to also have that presentation from NEDLAC themselves. Thank you.
Next is Honorable Motubatsi. Yeah.
No, thanks very much, Chair, for the opportunity, and welcome to the participants and the media. Look, Chair, I just want to engage with the timelines that we can actually look into. Like you said in your presentation, this process might take long, but I think as a committee we need to engage as to what timeline are we giving this whole process. But also, I just want to check, because members of the public, and those are the interested parties, is it really necessary that those who have interest, especially big business, in this whole scheme of things, must they really come and make a presentation to us as the committee? Because I know for sure that at some point, when this whole process started, especially during Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's tenure, there was a discussion around this particular matter of stakeholders and us as members of parliament engaging with people of the industry in this issue, because they are the affected parties and the influence that they have in this whole process. So I just want to find out whether is it really necessary for us to continue engaging with them. Thanks, Chair.
Third is Honorable Dr. Leroux.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for that feedback. I just have one question and one comment. It's helpful to hear the process and to see how we will try and fit that in. My one question was with trying to do hearings or get feedback after sessions. I think one of the challenges, of course, that is quite unpredictable at times. I was just wondering whether Tuesday mornings might not be an option as well. I don't know what people's rosters and timings are looking like. But rather than doing it after sessions when sometimes we might then have to cancel. So it was just a one question around that. The second question was just around the whole process of now with the public hearings that we've had. We've obviously had lots and lots of submissions, and I just would like to understand the process about how those submissions will be summarized and when we will be reviewing those submissions. So obviously we've heard them in person, but I'd like to understand the process about how do we kind of summarize all of those submissions, and how are we in an objective way able to weigh the different submissions that we've had from the communities that we've been visiting. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Teko.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to you. Good morning to the members. Good morning to our stakeholders that are connected to the meeting. Chair, I just wanted to appreciate your update on the process, because the process started long ago. We are now here, and at least I understand that you have the background to whatever phase that we are in, and that the committee was in during the 6th Parliament. Chair, I also wanted to agree on the process that suggestion that we've made, your proposal that is saying we may engage with the stakeholders even outside our normal Wednesdays. That is agreeable, Chair, because we need to finish the process, but also to caution, we must caution our stakeholders who have an interest in making a presentation to say there must be no unnecessary postponements. When they have been noticed in due course, they must be able to present themselves before the committee so that we know that we started and we will finish the process on time. Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted to raise those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to you, the committee members, the staff, and the invited stakeholders. I want to agree with you, Chair, and support your notion to say we can't have an open-ended process whereby the 60 stakeholders that have indicated they want to participate in the process where it is now, we're going to have other stakeholders coming in, because it might lead us to a case whereby we may be stuck listening to stakeholders. So I think what we need to do, Chair, is exactly as you said, that we need to have proper timelines to avoid an open-ended process. Having said that, Chair, I think it would assist if we could have a program that details from now up until the end, this is what will be happening, in the sense that we are going to have the 60. If we know that the 60 plus 10, now we are going to be part of that process, let's say up until May or June, there's some form of a plan as to how long that process will take. From there, we are going to deliberate as a committee. From there, we're going to listen to NETLEC. From there, we're going to, so that there are timelines that we attach to the entire process. I think it will assist us, Chair. The second issue, Chair, is regarding the participation or the NETLEC report. Previously, we had engaged the department, and out of that engagement, NETLEC, a discussion with NETLEC was the result. So it would help for the committee to receive a report from NETLEC to see, out of the engagement it had with the department, these were the areas of agreement. In fact, this is the outcome of that particular engagement. That would also assist to equip the members to know that from the NEDLEC side, this is what came out. And then the last issue, Chair, I want to agree with Honorable Clark when it comes to the stakeholders being afforded ample opportunity to make their presentations. However, Chair, I would also request that they also need to give us their presentation in time so that they do not have a case whereby they are afforded proper time to prepare and get themselves ready, but we get their presentations at the 11th hour. I think that might not do justice for the process. And wherever possible, I think an in-person engagement would suffice. But all in all, Chair, I wanted to agree with you that we need to utilize some of the days, such as Fridays or after the house sittings. Those were my contributions. Thank you, Chair.
Before I take the last one, Honorable Kumalo, Honorable Zungula, just on one point, what do you mean by in-person meetings? You mean our meetings must be conducted physically?
My proposal, Chair, wherever possible, let's say we've got a house sitting that finishes at 5. It would make much more sense to convene physically because we'd all be coming from the house. So that was my submission.
Okay.
Wherever possible, Chair, not a case whereby it's something I'm saying it must always happen, but when it is possible.
Okay. Honorable Kumalo, you are the last one on this one. Thanks. Honorable Kumalo, are you available? Honorable Kumalo has got a challenge. Let me then say, let me prepare this committee to say, in this meeting, there is Miss Susan Isaacs, our legal advisor, who will also pitch in to add on what I'm going to say now, or just to greet us, Miss Susan, to that, after I finish my responses to the honorable members. And also there is
Chairperson.
Yes.
Chair, do you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Is Honorable Kumalo here?
Switch off your video if there's a problem. We can't we can hardly see you. We see your glasses. Okay. We see your glasses. Just maybe save your bandwidth and just talk. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yo. Chairperson.
If you have a challenge, Ms. Kumalo, write down your question. I will reply to it. But continue.
Okay.
I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Continue. Yeah.
Chairperson, I want just to take this opportunity to thank you for explaining to all of us the process that we must follow to listen to all the organization and structures that have written to us so that they can come and do their presentation. I want also to second members who have agreed that we must have some extra days to listen to stakeholders so that we can have enough time to deal with these matters. And Chair, the proposal that I want also to make, Chairperson, is that the report from the provinces that we have engaged, can we deal with that after we've finished to listen all the stakeholders so that we don't put more information in front of us. I think now the decision that we have taken is that we must listen to stakeholders, let us allow that process to unfold before maybe we can deal with issues of provinces. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much, honorable members. So, Ms. Isaacs and Ms. Soraya, I was still saying there's also a state law advisor, Ms. Soraya Williams. You will come in after me when I've explained, just to greet us or comment on what we have just dealt with in this process. Let me try and reply to the honorable members what they've really asked us to, what they've raised. Thank you very much, honorable members, for your response. Let me start with Honorable Clark. To say, just when I was aware this process is going to kick in, I then, like there was an issue with NETLEC, and you then allowed me to engage with NETLEC. So I'm continuously engaging with NETLEC. I wanted them to come in and indicate how things are going. So they've really rightfully, and I agree with them, rightfully indicated to me to say they are actually wrapping up their involvement. You remember that the initial matter was Department of Health has not given them a hearing, or they have not completed the process, or there's been a misunderstanding. So that part was sorted out. And then there has been a continuous engagement with the Department of Health. So 2 weeks ago, when I contacted NETLEC, I said, no, Dr. Zomo, give us time. Let us complete processes with the Department of Health, and we will present. So if we come very late towards the last part in the presentation to the committee, will really be comfortable with this. However, we as NETLEC have certain units within us. Business might be coming in, of course, to make their own presentations. The labor union might also on their own come in, not necessarily representing NETLEC. So a NETLEC report will come to us at the comfort of NETLEC, because that is what they've indicated to me. So we have not ignored that process. And that has been through my discussions with them that there will be. For now, it's just finalizing their discussions with the Department of Health. However, the NETLEC units, components, labor and union might at their own, they might come in a schedule that we are going to probably be unfolding here as we are talking, as honorable members are talking about it. Honorable Mutubase, we are a parliamentary democracy. If anybody has indicated they would like to engage, they will be given a slot. Because legally, if we do miss out, and I want the legal team here to confirm, somebody might just say, yes, you did very well, but I raised my hand and you ignored me. So this process is not democratic, and therefore I need the court to hold on to that, and you guys start or consult with me again. So there will not be anybody who will be left who has indicated. But like I indicated, when the process started, adverts were made, start date, end date, please submit your application, this, that, and the other. And people then were responding accordingly. Any person who then responded within that time frame was considered and will be considered. There won't be anybody who will be left out. It's difficult, Honorable Mutubase, now to give a timeline, as we have just indicated in the proposal, the request to you. This 60, I can't quantify 60 within a month, within 2 months. It will depend on us making time available. In fact, during that time of COVID, we even made some requests when the political parties were making oversight to say, can we maybe have oversight of our members finishing at 2 or 3 whenever they've been, and therefore at 4 o'clock we reassemble virtually and continue because we have invited so and so and so and so. So it was a real big sacrifice that honorable members made. Right now, we are also working around that type of a scenario. It may be difficult to complete it. We might give ourselves a target to say we really wish to be wrapping up April, May by June, but depending of how many more others over the 60 that we do have, that will actually then come through. Honorable Dr. Leroux, it's upon us to consider. I do know that there are honorable members here who are in various portfolio committees and therefore are probably sitting. We have to also assess if we do a Tuesday morning, how many are we going to be without? who will be in other portfolio committees. Because while there are core here, if the core of about 6, 7, 8 are present, then yes, maybe Tuesday mornings are also possible. That must also be assessed, and then we can engage ourselves through discussions in terms of that. That was your main. So I think Honorable Leroux was also, Dr. Leroux has also been asking the question that Honorable Khumalo has indicated. Honorable members, this is a new process of listening to new institutions. Let us pack the report, which also needs its own writing and analysis by our content advisor, researcher, and the team that was working with us, and bring it in at an appropriate time. For now, let us deal with what is still outstanding, because that report might be ready tomorrow, next week, next month, June, and really look into that report when it is ready. What we need to rush is to deal with what we have never dealt with. A write-up of a report of our public hearings and all that will also come in, and we'll look into that. So I think we will work around that part. Honorable, I think Honorable Clerk was also commending and supporting the process, and really the fine-tuning of this process will really maybe leave it to the Ms. Machalamba, myself, and other members to suggest to you how we think we need to get this unfolding. Honorable Zungula, yes, there was a time in the start. We now know that there's 16, but we are saying of the other 230,000 people who wrote to say, I support the bill, I do not support the bill, there may as well be one who said, over and above, I do not support the bill, I want to be given a slot to come and say why. So that part has not been completed, and that is what we are looking into. So that one is already inside us. We will not disadvantage the person who said, I support the bill, I do not support the bill, but I still want to come in and also explain further. That if there's a sentence like that in this analysis that is being done, those are the added ons. That's why I say we will not be able to determine how many more. So yes, I think Honorable Khumalo was actually saying what I'm already concerned. Rather, colleagues, we err on the side of getting a report after all this other new work has been completed. May I invite Ms. Isaacs and thereafter Ms. Williams to then just show their face and also add something here, because they are our legal funding. In a lighter note, when we were chatting outside with Ms. Honorable Clark, Ms. Clark was saying, we may not agree with NHI, but you never flouted the process when we needed to consult with our parties, give us time, let's not continue with the meeting today, we need to consult. So that is why if the people may be challenging NHI Act, it may be on the content and not on the process of this portfolio committee. So hence we have invited also these other leaders here to just add on as to whether we're still within the process. Ms. Isaacs first, greet us, show your face, and then Ms. Williams thereafter. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and members of the committee. My name is Sue-Ann Isaac, and I'm the Parliamentary Legal Advisor, and I will be assisting this committee in the process and deliberations of this bill. Chairperson, you have addressed the process and all the issues. Just to add or to emphasize, in terms of Section 59(1)(a) of the Constitution, the National Assembly must facilitate public involvement in its legislative processes. And the public involvement involves all members of the public. So whether the stakeholders are in industry or they are individual members or interest groups or NGOs, Parliament gives everyone an opportunity to state their case and their issues, and all those issues are put under consideration. And just a comment on the process from a legal point of view, now that the members have agreed in principle to extra days and as to how they're going to go forward. Once the program, as a draft program at least, has been agreed to by the chairperson, then the stakeholders should be given just adequate time of around 7 days to prepare, so we don't have issues of them saying we have not given them adequate time to address the committee and prepare. So those are just the two legal issues that I will address. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Isaacs. Ms. Williams?
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honourable members. My name is Surya Williams and I'm from the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor. I have nothing to add at this stage. I agree with what the Parliamentary Law Advisor said with regard to the facilitation of public involvement, and I am available should the committee require any sort of legal assistance or legal opinion. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, committee.
Thank you to these learned, beautiful ladies for your information and what you have added on. So, honorable members, we are within our legal space to be, we are well supported by this team. Maybe before we continue, we would want to say, honorable members, we have done some justice on this item, and there are two leaders there who will always be available to support us legally and also within our space of wanting to know more. We will then put together what would be a draft program. It should be a working program. I'm really pleading, honorable members, let us try to be flexible. We'll steal time wherever we can. Tuesdays mornings, some afternoons, pleading with members to travel a bit late on Fridays. Honorable Zungula, it may actually be difficult to say to a particular stakeholder, please come to Cape Town, we'll have a meeting at 6 and the house finishes at 7, and also rather you err on the side of saying, sorry, wherever you are, let's log in now, no more at 6, but at 7:30. So it may just be extremely difficult. We will try, but there are certain critical meetings, definitely the ones that we may have with the department, with NETLEC and other institutions might be, and those that are probably in and around the Western Cape, but just on the cost, to bring in people and suddenly you postpone or you don't have any issue might be a problem with that. I see another hand, Honorable Zungula. As we are wrapping up, we want to say something else?
No, it was not a hand, Chair. It was a thumbs up, meaning I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Maybe before we move on, thanks, we have now dealt with this item, give an opportunity to Mr. Khatla. Any other leaders that are here from Department of Health? Was this process just like you were with us in the public hearing? So we need to know that you are also part of a listening process here. Mr. Khatla, who is here from the Department of Health?
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. Indeed, Chairperson, the department will be part and parcel of this process throughout all stages, and the department is represented today by Ms. Lorato Mahura, and Advocate Moabelo is also in, and the parliamentary liaison staff as well. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. We are now moving to the next agenda item, which is a presentation. I'll have to ask to remember the name of the institution that is presenting, but Ms. Chalamba can flight it for the honorable members now to remember who is presenting. I hope that the invited leadership of this institution are in the meeting already, and Ms. Machalamba can confirm. Let me give this to you, Ms. Machalamba, to remind us who is coming to present. Are they in the meeting already? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. They are in the meeting. I've given them co-hosting rights. It's Tobacco, Alcohol and Gambling Advisory and Advocacy and Action Group. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Can they, if they have been given...
They are led by Mr. Peter Yuko.
Yes. If they already have been given sharing rights, Let me welcome them and request that they have 20 minutes of presentation. Mr. Peter, and you will then listen thereafter to the clarity-seeking comments from honorable members, and then you come back again to clarify on that, and that will be the end of our meeting. Won't give you whether yes or no today. Collectively, we are in a series of listening to many other stakeholders like yourselves who would have wanted to engage with the committee on this bill. And you have now 20 minutes starting now to introduce your delegation and then make your presentation. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and hi to all the honourable members of the Portfolio Committee. Your secretary did request a presentation, and that's usually a PowerPoint type presentation. I generally, when I do these presentations, get rather animated and I walk around, and you can't do that with a video presentation. So let's imagine my first slide would just say Tobacco, Alcohol and Gambling Advisory, Advocacy and Action Group. So we deal with the three major legal addictions, and they're all linked. Heavy gamblers are likely to be heavy smokers. Heavy drinkers, and especially alcoholics, are definitely going to be heavy smokers. And smokers are more likely to be drinkers and gamblers rather than non-smokers. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm the CEO of TAG, and my involvement in public health goes back a long, long time. In fact, when I served on the local council of Edenvale, it was at the time, it's now part of Ekurhuleni, we did in the kind of mid-80s pass the first tobacco control legislation of no smoking in public buildings. And I proposed that, I think, in 1980, and it took a couple of years to get through. But we banned smoking in all municipal and public buildings, so that when you came to pay your rates and taxes, or to pay your electricity bill, or came to the clinic to have your baby weighed, there was no smoking. And the public were delighted with that. So my history goes back in that area for a long, long time. There's more detail that I can give you. But imagine I now switch to a second slide, and I might say to you, Ds. We talk about the Ds when we give people advice about stopping smoking. So when you get this urge to smoke, if you're a quitter, you kind of, I have to have a cigarette. So the first D is delay the decision to smoke. You can say to yourself, you know what, I'm not going to smoke now. I'll wait for 5 minutes, and then I'll decide if I smoke or not. We also say do some deep breathing. It gets you to relax. Drink water. It's another one of the Ds. The relaxation, the drinking water. Also, distract yourself by doing something different. So whatever you're doing at the time that you get that urge and that craving to smoke, just go and do something different. Take your mind off the urge to smoke, and that's part of the process of quitting smoking. Now, we switch to the third slide, which might be to deal with the stakeholders that so many of your honourable members have already mentioned. And that includes the industry, both the tobacco manufacturers, the cigarette manufacturing industry, and the electronic products industry. And the interesting thing to note is that right now, most of the major electronic devices are actually owned by the formal large international tobacco manufacturers, cigarette manufacturers. So that's quite an interesting thing to bear in mind. And this slide will also show a few Ds. And once, I think you have to engage with the industry. It's part of our parliamentary and constitutional democratic process. But when you do engage with the industry, please bear in mind these Ds. The industry will always try and distract you. And they'll say, for example, jobs. Well, the truth is cigarettes are made by machines, not by people. So there's not very many job losses. If you look at tobacco farmers, 20 years ago, more or less, there were about 1,600 plus tobacco farmers in South Africa. Now, I believe there are less than 200. You can get that information from the Department of Agriculture. So what happened to the other 1,400? They got into growing more profitable crops because tobacco is not a most profitable crop. So there are not job losses there. The farmers just go and grow other crops. And why did that happen? Partly because the manufacturers of cigarettes imported cheaper tobacco from other countries. So they didn't worry about local farmers, they just imported cheaper tobacco. And so now we got less than 200 farmers. Then they'll divert your attention, that's the other D, from some of the facts. For example, early research that the industry released, and it was the industry that released it, said that these electronic devices, electronic cigarettes, which are now, they're no longer cigarettes, they're big, huge devices that you suck on, and it lets out plumes of smoke, and they said 85% safer than combustible cigarettes. And they said they're 85% less harmful. Now, that may or may not be true. Later research, because we've had 20 plus years to look at it, the later research has showed that, yeah, it's true that these electronic nicotine delivery systems and other devices might be safer, but they're not safe. They might be less harmful, but they are not harmless. The other thing the industry will do, it's the next D, is they'll delay as much as they can the legislation. And they use various methods and maneuvers to do that. And they'll also dilute. So all the input that they'll give you, and I'm going to give you some on the actual bill, is to dilute the legislation, to make it easier for them. So that's quite simple. The objective and the aim of TAG is to save life, L-I-F-E. That's to save lives, to save individuals, to save families, and to save the environment. We have no other ulterior motive. Whilst the industry, and their stakeholders, we'll give them that, the industry has only one objective, and that is to make profits to pay dividends to their shareholders. That's their objective. It doesn't matter how many people they kill on the way, because let's be accurate about this. Tobacco, we often used to say in the past, people die from smoking. They don't just die from smoking. Cigarettes kill people. They kill about half the users prematurely. So this is not a game to play. And let's say finally we go to another slide that says pang, and this is a bell I love to ring, and I ask all the honorable members to ring this bell, pang. That is that smoking and the use of electronic devices should never be popularized, advertised, normalized, or glamorized. And it's as simple as that. Now, what I'm going to do now is share a screen with you and we go through it, not in great detail because you've got copies of the bill. Can you see that if you tell me, please? I can't see what you're seeing. Can you see that? Mr. Chairman? Dr. Glomo?
I do see something, but it's not opening up as yet. There is something that is here. Yes, yeah.
Okay. So our input is really quite practical when it comes to the bill itself. And I would like to request, please, when it comes, and I make this offer also to your legal advisors, when it comes to going through the bill line by line, I would love to be present on that because our input is based on practicalities and experience of managing the tobacco control legislation as it was then called. It's now the Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill. And
yeah,
I would like to say,
Mr. Speaker, let me advise you, you have this time slot. When we are doing the bill clause by clause, we will not invite you. That will be left to the committee. Say whatever you want to say today now, because then your slot is today, not on the day we are doing a clause by clause. Okay.
Okay, I understand that. But I won't go through everything now because it's going to just take too long. But you have a copy of this bill, and the colors might change a little bit different. I'll go, for example, when we come to definitions, it really is just a little bit of slow process when it comes to streaming and zooming. I've made many suggested changes. For example, when we look at acknowledging in the preamble, in the second bullet, I say that we should add the word agricultural. All these comments have been motivated by my comments on the right-hand side, and your legal advisors can call me to clarify. And then in the second thing, considering that the extent of the harmful effects, I suggest that we add tobacco smoke and aerosols, because the bill does talk about aerosols and emissions and vapors in various other parts of its bill. Then we want to deter people, especially the children and the youth, from using tobacco products and electronic delivery systems and non-nicotine delivery systems. So these are little suggestions that'll make the legislation just much easier to implement and to manage. Now, I'm going to whiz past a lot of this. For example, here under resolving the last bit, we also add electronic delivery systems, just to make it abundantly clear of how the bill is managed. An arrangement of the sections, which is published in the bill. And by the way, Mr. Chairman and honourable members, I'd like you to remind you that originally the bill, a bill, was published in 2015. That's 10 years ago. And that was after considerable work. It was published in 2015, and there were so many changes required in the bill, because it was big changes, that we changed it from an amendment to the Tobacco Product Control Amendment Bill to a new bill with a new title. And then we, TAG, made about 450 suggestions of changes, as I'm making now to the committee, and most of them, or many of them, were used. If you look at number 7 under this section, health warnings, I propose adding and other messages, because it's not only going to be health warnings, it might be a message regarding saving money. Because imagine if you're a smoker of cigarettes and you buy a maybe a cheaper brand, because the more expensive ones are over 40 Rand, and you buy one of 30 Rand, and you smoke a pack a day, that's 360, say 30 Rand, that's about 900 Rand a month. That's like 10,000 Rand a year. That's enormous. So the messages are not only health warnings, but the minister must be empowered to make regulations regarding other messages as well. Under the definitions, I proposed adding aerosols and vapor. I don't have to elaborate on that. So we'll go down. There's quite a number of changes that I suggest when it comes to definitions, and suggested some additions, which you'll see. The page is scrolling, but it's a little bit slow because of the internet and so on. Under C, if you look at this section, page 4 of the bill, under C, we talk about the device such as, I propose adding the words, but is not limited to, because we don't know what grandiose plans the tobacco industry and the electronic device industry is going to come up with. So if you start saying mouthpieces, batteries, heat sources, etc., you need to add but not limited to, because later on they'll say, oh, no, this is not in the Act. So we must allow an expansion of that. You'll see I proposed adding the definition of employer here, and this comes when we go further down the bill, under 2.7 of the bill. It says something like, for the purposes of this section, an employer is defined as. I think that the definition of employer should be under definitions under the Act. It's very, very simple. And it goes on with all these things that I'm proposing are just to bring clarity to the bill and to the ultimate legislation, which the environmental health practitioners and others will have to manage and monitor and make it as easy as it is possible for them to understand. If you look at promote, I've suggested there generating sales. It says and creating brand loyalty. So if promotion doesn't do both of those things, generate sales and create brand loyalty, then we could say, well, okay, it doesn't comply, so it's not promotion. So I suggest we put or. So it could be and this or that or both of them, just to make things easier. Under a public place, again, once you start mentioning a restaurant and a hotel, anything else tends to be excluded. So perhaps we should stop earlier. But if you want to include that, we must then say, but is not limited to a restaurant. We must add a club. People say, oh, this is a private club. It's a different debate. But please, I ask you, Mr. Chairman, and the honourable members of the committee, accept what I'm telling you as based on practical experience of implementing the bill since it came into force when it was banning smoking in public places in January 2020. Practical experiences. This bill doesn't only want to control over smoking, but also use of electronic systems. When it comes to no person shall smoke in an enclosed public place, we need to add the words partially enclosed. The current legislation talks about a public place as an enclosed or partially enclosed public space. Because if you say enclosed, you're going to say totally enclosed. But also if it's partially enclosed, it traps the smoke around, and we need to add these words. And I repeat, this is based on practical experience, all the things I've added. If you look at, I've suggested renumbering. The F says a private dwelling, etc., and then says or, and I suggest we don't leave that just as an or, but we renumber a G. Any place contemplated in subsection 2, which is just below that. And then we add an H, which is a motor vehicle while driving or in control of such a vehicle. The reason we propose adding that, and it doesn't happen often, but once is too much, that a smoker is smoking whilst he's driving. So his attention is distracted. And it has happened, for example, in Italy 10 or 12 years ago, that a smoker dropped his cigarette and it goes straight into his lap. And I don't have to tell you what's in a man's lap. And he's going to be grabbing around looking for the cigarette, distracted from driving the motor vehicle. And in Italy, a man drove into a crowd of people and killed someone. So I suggest adding that for practical administrative purposes. If you look at number 4 here, it says the person in control of a public place. And I'd like there to add the owner and the person in control of the public place. Because the owner might live somewhere else, miles away from, say, a restaurant. And he's instructed the manager, who becomes then the person in control of the public place, to do something which may contravene the act. So the manager says, oh, sorry, my boss told me to, the owner told me to. We must make the owner responsible. It doesn't matter where he lives. He cannot give an instruction to someone to disobey the laws. The same in section 5 over there, where I say the owner and the person in control of the public place. And that person in control of the public place goes much further. For example, in a shopping center, the landlord also has control. Let's say there's a restaurant in a shopping center. The landlord or the manager of that shopping center has control over that public place through conditions of the lease. Now, this can go on and on and on. And Mr. Chairman, I think we're not going to have total time to go through everything, but the committee and the honourable members of the committee and your legal advisors have this bill in front of you as I've submitted it. And various times you'll see I mention health warnings where it says health warnings and other messages. It's important that wherever health warnings are mentioned, that the other messages are also mentioned. Now, under 5A here, which I've got on screen now, a retailer or wholesaler or importer, because some cigarettes and products are not manufactured in this country and they'll be imported. And this importer is now suddenly excluded from the legislation because he's not mentioned. So it's a retailer, wholesaler, or importer. all of them, and I mentioned this under B here, and if you look at D, very consistently that we have standardization throughout the Act. Under E, you'll see the notice to list of products, and I've added there and messages where it says health warnings. And by the way, the legislation, the bill says health warning, it should be warnings and other messages. So there's a lot of stuff, Mr. Chairman, and I can go on and on and on in this. Together with this submission that we made, I also added if you look here under G, that's on your screen now, health, you see over here, markings and other messages, because they might not always be markings or messages or health warnings. They could be all sorts of things. And any electronic devices. So everything that I've submitted here, or the tag has given to this committee, is based on practical experience of making legislation easy to understand and very simple to implement. Under this section on page 10, health warnings and other messages and required information, all of that is just cleaning up the bill so that it's not difficult to understand. And Mr. Chairman, I think I'm going to stop here because it's already 11:05. If you have, very important this one, and I'll end here because there is a lot more, but you have this in front of you and you can go through it. And I repeat, your legal advisors can telephone me at any time and ask me for clarification of what I might have suggested here. I suggest adding a clause that the minister must make regulations regarding the implementation of a system of tracking and tracing. This is part of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control from the World Health Organization. It deals with tracking and tracing. So we must give that power to the minister to make those regulations. And I'm going to stop here. That you can see there's just really a lot more, but it all has to do with the absolute practicalities of simple, easy understanding of the bill, of the legislation when it's eventually promulgated, and easy implementation so that there's no ifs and ands or buts. We just implement the bill. And anything that the industry might suggest to change is going to go back to my the third slide, which I would have given you, of diluting and weakening the bill and making it more beneficial to them. And whilst you must engage with those stakeholders, remember that they have only one objective, that is to make a profit, to pay dividends to shareholders. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to stop there because there's a lot more, but you can ask me questions at any time. So that's it, and I'm happy during the discussion period to answer questions of the honourable members of the committee. Thank you. I really appreciate the time that you've given me, Dr. Dlomo and members. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm at your disposal at any time that you can. And members of the health department also know me by experience and reputation, that what I'm telling you is just the basic facts, the truth as they exist. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Uklo. Even before you finish, there's a hand from Eguruleni, and therefore the hand from Eguruleni MP will be number 1. While the lighter note, you are actually saying, you probably must be aware that the bill is proposing certain fines for this, that, and the other. Now, I hope you are not going to make it difficult for the bill to become an act if you are saying people must not smoke while driving. I know it's what an inconvenience it causes for people on the car, passengers in the taxi to have that. But I also think that is there in the bill to say people must actually either stop and smoke and get out and not say, this is my car, you take what I give you. Besides the issue of the ash falling on whatever that is to be protected for humankind, which you said, but that is also a part of what the bill is proposing, avoid smoking in the car, in the vehicle for the other passengers. Honorable Clerk, you are the first one speaking to your home neighbor from Ekurhuleni. That hand, Honorable Mr. Uklo is from Ekurhuleni. Honorable Clark is from Ekurhuleni, followed by Honorable Zungula, number 2. I'm taking hands now. So, for your ease, Mr. Uklo, get a pen and paper now, because you are not going to answer you are going to answer collectively, respond collectively after all the hands have been exhausted. There's the Honorable Clark, number 1, Honorable Zungula, number 2, Honorable Peko, number 3. Just keep on scrolling up here. My computer is assist me, Miss Machalamba. Oh my goodness, why is this thing to scroll up? Okay, let me get the members to, okay, Honorable Peko, number 3, number 4, Honorable Mutubatsi, number 5, Honorable Dr. Leroux. Yes. Any 6 hands? Any after Dr. Leroux? I don't see
There's
any.
no other hand.
Okay. Let us take those hands, honorable members, in this order. Alderman Clark, Honorable Clark from Ekurhuleni, Honorable Zungula, number 2, Honorable Peko, number 3, Honorable Honorable Mutubatsi, number 4. Last hand is Honorable Dr. Leroux. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you, Mr. Uko, for your presentation. As the chairperson called me Alderman, I was a ward councillor for Bedford View for many years before I came to Parliament, so you probably might know me, being from Edenvale. Okay, so there's just a couple of matters I would like to raise with you. And please understand, I am not a smoker at all. I've never smoked before in my life. And, you know, as the DA, we are all about regulation that makes the country's health situation safer. And that is something that we must concentrate on, but we also have to mitigate certain circumstances where people might be affected in terms of their constitutional rights and also job losses, etc. So my question to you is, what is your view on the illicit trade in this country, which is approximately 70% of cigarettes in this country that are illicit? And, you know, illicit cigarettes have a lot more harmful substance within those cigarettes than cigarettes that have been regulated. Then of course the sentence aligned to that, if you're caught smoking in a non-designated area, you get a 10-year jail sentence. And what is your view on that? Because I think that's an extremely harsh imposement. Okay, and then in terms of the electronic system, are your facts based on scientific research and peer review reports? Because at this stage, we have not seen any of that at this committee, and we are wanting to see some presentations from scientists and university professors that have conducted this kind of research to give us a real understanding as to what the health risks are in terms of the electronic smoking devices. And then in terms of job losses, you spoke about saying that in terms of job losses, that there's no real effect. But I was just wondering, what do you base that on? Because there's a huge outcry from the informal sector that make their living on selling single cigarettes and putting food on the table for their families. So if you could just tell me how you based your research and on that, and what were your stats based on that research. And then I have to say to you that being a non-smoker does not align me. Every now and then have a glass of wine with my food. Doesn't make me smoke. So, you know, I don't know if I totally agree with that assumption, that if you drink alcohol, you will smoke and smoke more heavily, etc. I don't think I agree with that. And then also, In terms of smoking in your car, if you're on your own in your car, surely that's your personal right in order to make that decision, same as in your home. I do agree that you should not be smoking in the car when you have passengers in the car or children in the car. But if you are there on your own, obviously that is your personal space, and you should have the right to make that decision. So thank you so much for your presentation, and that's all for now, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Mr. Uko. I also want to, echo my sentiments to Honorable Clark on the issue of science. That, the issue of smoking predominantly, I think in my view, science should lead, and our sessions should be based on science more than anything else because it is a health issue. But having said that, I think on your introductions, you were very clear on the question of saving lives, but we also need to be cognizant on the realities of the South African situation. Because in the South African situation, there's the question of the illicit market, which accounts to 70% of the trade, just like Honorable Clark stated. So having said that, do you have a view whether a complete ban on smoking or very harsh regulations against smoking would lead to a spike in the illicit market, where the outcome of it would be more devastating than what we have now? The second issue is you spoke about smoking or e-cigarettes or vaping. They are not harmless, but they've got less harm. That was the assertion. Are you aware of New Zealand, Sweden, and other countries, how they managed to have the smoking rates to 6.8% by embracing vapes, whereas in South Africa, the smoking rate rates went up by to 25.8% through having more regulations. So basically, do you agree that smoking is a complex issue, and results like in the past have shown during the times of the lockdowns that hard regulations lead to illicit products and increased smoking, which ultimately lead to more burdens on the healthcare system? And linked to that is, are you cognizant of the WHO framework, which does recognize that harm reduction is an important strategy or intervention? The other issue I would like to basically touch on is, okay, linked to this, I'm sure you remember that, during the times of the hard lockdown, whereby there were excessive restrictions, based on your research that you've done, was smoking reduced at the time, or smoking at the time of the hard restrictions during COVID, did it go up or down? And also you spoke about TAG was part of the drafting process and made over 450 contributions. So in what capacity were you part of that particular process? Was it before 2018 or after 2018? Then the bill is silent on illicit trade. So as you were part of the drafting team, do you think this adequately accounts for the dynamics of the South African tobacco market? Perhaps is it not a concern that outsourcing the issues of illicit trade to law enforcement alone will not do justice, given that the burden will not be felt by the law enforcement entities, but rather it will be more on It will be more on the health system. And then the last issue, I think it will help for the community to understand you as a person and the organization you represent. I think that's why you gave a background of who you are and the work that you've done. Are you able to disclose who funds the TAG and the kind of influence they have on the organization, so that in the context of the process we're in now, we're able to confidently know that the domestic policies of South Africa are not under the influence of any entity that is not of South Africa? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Keko.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for giving me the opportunity. Let me welcome the presentation by Mr. Peter Uko. My apologies if I pronounce the name and surname wrongly. Chair, let me welcome what has been presented in front of this portfolio committee. Appreciating the fact that individuals and stakeholders have showed an interest in participating in this process. I appreciate the fact that the presenter said that as early as 2015, the initiative was already there, meaning that Health South Africa is on its right path to meet the standards as set by the World Health Organization regarding tobacco control. I have a question, Chair, which I think I have my own answer, but I would like the presenter to share his own views regarding the question. I was trying to ask, who does he think the most vulnerable is between a smoker, a direct smoker, and a second smoker? Why I say so, Chair, is that the bill, to me, is addressing both, but I want to get from him who the most vulnerable is between the two. Chairperson, I also appreciate the fact that the presenter is bringing regarding job losses, that the information that we got from public hearings that this bill will lead to job losses. Now the presenter is saying something that was said in one of the provinces when we were at public hearings, that it's not only this bill that will lead to job losses, but we must, as a country, look at the import of cheaper cigarettes that are already in this country, so that it is our responsibility, as it was raised then, and he is also sensitizing us about that there is another contributor that is contributing to job losses in South Africa, not that it's only this bill that will lead to that. But Chair, let me appreciate also the fact that the presenter is availing his services to the legal section of Parliament and ourselves free of charge, because of an interest that his organization has around this tobacco control bill. I wanted to bring that in appreciation, Chair, that we received him as a committee, and also that his views will be shared when we discuss the bill, maybe during the clause by clause phase or other phases of processing this bill. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to the presenter. Thank you for bringing such important information in front of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Mutubatsi, the next hand.
No, thanks very much, Chair. I think Honorable Zungula raised an issue that I wanted to raise regarding the background of the presenter. And it actually ties exactly and with the question that I raised earlier. And Chair, with your permission, I would want to implore the legal people to help me here or to help the committee, because I don't want people to come back and says we actually ignored a particular piece of legislation or resolution that was taken. I accept what the legal person is saying in terms of people who are in the industry. I want them to further go into the archives and find out as to whether such a resolution that I raised in terms of us engaging was never taken either by cabinet or by the Parliament of South Africa. I'm raising this because of the background of the presenter here and with my fellow committee member who is actually indicating that he's actually making his availability free of charge to Parliament, whether that in itself is not a contradiction, because there's influence that come from other people, and he did mention that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Dr. Leroux is the last hand.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And thank you to Mr. Uko for his presentation. I have been covered by the other members mostly. I just had two quick questions. The one was just around I think we would all agree with you that we don't want to promote electronic methods either. But would you, I think there is, as one of my colleagues mentioned, there is the harm reduction aspect, particularly for smokers who are trying to stop, that some of in some of the public hearings were mentioned by doctors. Would you regard it as promotion if a doctor, for example, recommended that instead of smoking, a person used vaping, so that would just be one of my questions there. And then the second question, I see in the line-by-line information you gave us, you spoke a bit about the non-nicotine sort of vapes and things that are used. I know that those are sometimes available. What is the evidence? I haven't seen much evidence around the harms of those delivery methods which are kind of nicotine free, and I just would appreciate if you have any information of that, if you could share that with us. Thank you.
Mr. Uklo, you will then have to assist us with responses. But just to respond on Mr. Honorable Mutubatsi, we brought the legal team from Parliament, also the state law advisor, to be listening and be part of us. They will not be answering in each and every meeting that they present themselves to. They will take what we are raising, and I'm glad you said that let them go and check in the archives, whatever that you want clarity on. So at a particular time when we need them to comment, the slot will be given so that they are not necessarily commenting in each and every sitting or each and every presentation, but if there are other things that they will respond to, they will at a particular time, just like the Department of Health is here, and also will get a slot to that. From my side, honorable members, you will then realize, and I think this is for the department, Advocate Maobelo, we will not escape a time when there will be issues about illicit trade raised, because yes, we are here to regulate those law-abiding citizens who have companies of tobacco. But then if there's a window opening up for illicit trade, you need to be very emphatic. It will not assist us when the time comes for you to present to say, oh no, we have left that to the Department of Trade and Industry or of Department of police or department of whatever, we don't know what is their latest on that. It won't assist this committee because we want to know that you are following up. We are very close to the process of making it watertight, the issues of illicit trade. It will definitely be something that will not assist the committee at the time you come to us to say, no, please invite SARS to give you an update, Chair. We don't know. You must really do your homework so well on this matter. And it is an issue that has been coming in all the time that you need to be ready to bring with you partners who are working on this matter and be able to present a credible story that will give comfort to say we are not only putting laws to regulate and control those who are in the law-making process, who are abiding law citizens and companies on issues of trade of tobacco, but we are also putting measures to deal with illicit. And the other part, so the last part is that I wanted to strengthen, Mr. Uklo, there is a view that rather for me all those of my age who may be smoking, just assist us to reduce rather than to expect us to stop, so that you have actually a forecast that say maybe issues of smoking should not be attractive to those who have not started, especially the young ones. But for us, be flexible and allow us to reduce rather than to expect us to completely stop. We will then give this opportunity to you then to reply and to comment on the issues raised by honorable members. Thank you, Mr. Uklo.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you saying that I should respond now to the notes that I've taken on the questions?
This is your time now.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, let me go through without addressing any individual particularly, but in general comments. When it comes to science, one of the major problems is that the electronic devices have exotic flavors with fancy names, and it's a great temptation for the youth. So they start using these devices, even non-nicotine, but we have found, not we because I'm not involved in research, it was been found internationally that even the non-nicotine delivery capsules or things that you get for putting in these electronic devices do contain some nicotine. So it's likely that the youth get addicted to nicotine. But the science shows that of those the youth we're talking about now, of those who use electronic devices, 43% are more likely to switch to combustible cigarettes because those devices don't fill the nicotine craving, the fix that you need to serve that craving, as well as combustible cigarettes. So that's a huge risk. Non-nicotine and nicotine delivery systems, those youth who use them, 43% more likely to start smoking combustible cigarettes. That's a frightening figure. And I think it was the Honourable Clerk who mentioned constitutional rights. There are many rights in the Constitution, such as the right to life. So even people who decide to smoke, we need to protect them and to try and get them to stop, because eventually half of all regular users will die prematurely. Those who inhale secondhand smoke, and by the way, there's not only secondhand smoke, there's various levels. Secondhand smoke is a smoker who inhales the cigarette and then breathes that smoke out. But there's also side stream smoke, and that's the smoke that comes off the tip of the cigarette. Then there's third-hand smoke, the sort of smoke that settles on your clothing and in your hair, for those of us who've still got hair, and curtains and furniture and carpets, that smoke, when you close and open curtains or sit down on a couch, it lifts off and it affects people very badly. So we talk rather about tobacco smoke pollution because that's what it is. Secondhand smoke sounds almost innocuous. Oh, it's secondhand smoke, but it's not. It's tobacco smoke pollution, and it can kill people. Imagine an asthma sufferer going into a hotel room where they were smoking, open or close the curtains, And the third-hand smoke comes off those curtains, and they get a sudden attack. And they can die. It's really terrible. When it comes to job losses, the Honourable Clerk mentioned that. I don't remember the exact figures, but quite long ago, one of the local manufacturers, British American Tobacco, closed their factory in the Cape. And I can't remember the numbers now of how many employees they had, but some of those employees were transferred to their factory in Heidelberg. Some of them, maybe 10 or 15%. We can get those exact figures. The rest were given early retirement or got other jobs. But the fact is that 10 or 15% who went from the old, dilapidated, really not very efficient factory in the Cape to Heidelberg produced an equal number of cigarettes that they did in the old factory in Cape Town. So Heidelberg is just much more efficient. So it's machines that make cigarettes, not people. When it comes to illicit trade, there's various levels. I think someone asked about which is more dangerous. Well, my answer to that is, imagine if you're standing on a highway and a 25-ton truck came barreling down the road and drove into you. Now you take a much smaller car, one of these entry-level cars, much smaller car that doesn't weigh as much as a 25-ton truck, maybe only weighs a ton or a ton and a half, and it comes battling down the freeway at only 60 kilometers an hour, and it hits you. Which way, between the 25-ton truck and 100 kilometers an hour, or the little vehicle doing 60 kilometers an hour, which of those would you be less dead? You can't be less dead. You're going to be dead anyway. So the harm in legal cigarettes or illegal cigarettes, it doesn't matter. They all cause addiction and will kill you. But I'll give you some information which I think was in August 2020 or 2021, at the height of the COVID closure and everything. Cigarettes were exported to Namibia in August of that year, which would supply Namibia for 1 full year of smoking and at their then consumption. But in fact, those cigarettes weren't totally reported. It's what the industry calls DNP. They always have fancy names for things. It's another one of those Ds. Duty not paid. So the cigarettes were supposedly exported to Namibia, but they weren't. They were round-tripped and they ended up in the illicit trade in South Africa. So the legal manufacturers, and there's information around the world to confirm this, that the legal manufacturers actually supply the smugglers and the other criminal activities. And there's always going to be illegal trade. It doesn't matter what product it is, because it's a criminal activity. Any product, including cigarettes, and maybe especially cigarettes because they're easy to transport, there's going to be illicit trade. Someone asked about a jail sentence. Now, you know, I don't actually care what the jail sentence is, but let's say R1 million to the tobacco industry is like 10 Rand to you and me. 10 million Rand is like maybe 50 Rand to you and me, because they've got masses of money. So I don't care what the penalty is, for example, for rape. I don't care what the penalty is for shoplifting. It can be 100 years in prison. And this might sound ridiculous. Let's say you're arrested for rape, then you're sentenced to 10 years or 20 years in prison, and every month they cut off a piece of your finger until all your fingers are gone and all your toes are gone. Now, that's not a suggestion, but it could be barbaric. But I don't care if that's the fact. The fact is, I'm never going to be arrested for shoplifting or for rape or any of those things. So the penalty doesn't matter, except to those who may get caught. And to the tobacco industry, where and I've suggested 20 or 25 years in some cases, where the bill suggests 15, and I've given you that schedule of offences and penalties to check it out. It doesn't matter. Make it as high as possible so that if one of them gets caught and hurt, maybe the others are more likely to comply. And when it comes to smokers and non-smokers, by the way, or occasional smokers, not all smokers drink. But alcoholics, the rehabilitation centers tell me that virtually 100% of alcoholics are smokers. So we was asked about funding. Unfortunately, here I have to hang my head in shame. TAG, as an organization, has been unable to raise major funding. We once got $5,000 from an international tobacco control organization for helping with the study that dealt with tobacco industry interference in South Africa. And that's all the funding we've got. For the last 10 or 12 years, I certainly and all our board members have been operating without being paid. And so you ask me, my service is free to Parliament. I'd be delighted if Parliament would pay anyone who helped them. But we've not been able to raise any funds. So we're not influenced by anybody except the moral and constitutional imperative and reality that everyone has the right to life. Everyone, in terms of Section 23, has the right to an environment that's not harmful to their health or well-being. That means an environment free from tobacco smoke pollution. Because tobacco smoke, secondhand smoking, whatever you call it, can kill people. I think there was a question about the rates of smoking going up and down. When the legislation first came into effect, the minister allowed 25% of an area, let's say of a bar or of a restaurant or of a hotel in the number of rooms, to be designated as a smoking area. And there's some rules that came into effect regarding what is a separate designated smoking area. Like it'd have to have its own ventilation and a closed door and signs on and at the door. That 25% was based on the smoking rate at that time. After that, it is true that the smoking levels went down. Since then, they've gone up. I think largely because of the electronic devices, and people have gone back to smoking. And I can't remember who it was, maybe the Honorable Zungula, said that the rates are now 25.8%. That might be correct. But if you look at it, what it was in the year 2000, 25 years ago, it's basically gone up 0.8%. So it's in control. Someone asked about a total ban on cigarettes and smoking. Now, that's not practical. We know from the prohibition in America on alcohol, it just doesn't work. There's always going to be a supply as long as there's a demand. And that supply, if we make a total ban, is going to all be illegal and the criminals will benefit. So what we need to do is encourage people to quit smoking, those who smoke, and those who don't smoke, especially the youth, never to start. And we mustn't make it glamorous. Remember, I mentioned Pang earlier today. Tobacco smoking and the use of tobacco products must never be promoted, advertised, normalized, or glamorized. We don't want to glamorize it with all these exotic flavors. And as I mentioned, 43% of the youth who use electronic devices are more likely to convert then to combustible cigarettes. And that could be one of the reasons for the increase, because we did go below 20%, maybe to 18% for a time, that we're now back at 25.8%. The 2015 bill was published after there were amendments that came into effect 2008, 2009, 2007 and 2008 amendments that came into effect in 2009. We immediately started working. And when I say we, I'm talking about the Department of Health, certainly, because that's part of their mandate. But individuals like TAG and people who've been involved in tobacco control started working on what do we need in the future. For example, there was a legal opinion given that the minister at that time, and those old legislations, the one that still exists, cannot put in pictorial health warnings. Well, I got a legal opinion from Advocate Pierre Koch, and we've consulted many advocates who've done this work for us free of charge. Pierre Koch was one who said, under the current legislation, we can have pictorial health warnings. But the Minister of Health at the time, and who's now again the Minister of Health, said, the state law advisors have got the one, and we're going to go in that, and that's why we have to change the law, and that's something that this bill is going to take care of. I think someone asked me, by the way, I think that was the Honorable Temba Lam about pronouncing my name. My response to that is usually, pronounce my name any way you like. Just give me money. But there are ways to pronounce it. Depends on how you see a U as a U or an E or an U. It doesn't really matter. But the important thing is that we work together on this bill and to save lives. Ultimately, the fewer people start smoking and the more people who quit smoking, eventually there'll be no market for tobacco products. Harm reduction, I think it was the Honorable LaRue who asked the question about harm reduction. Certainly, there is a benefit. It's benefit for someone who's addicted to nicotine. It's better to smoke 1 cigarette a day than 10 or 20 a day. That's certainly much better, but it's still harmful. You don't want to end up with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease where you have to walk around with an oxygen tank and a mask to help you to breathe. We want to try and avoid all these things by encouraging people never to start and those who are smokers to quit. I think I think there was a question about in what capacity did we work on drafting legislation. That was only when we were asked for input from various people and departments or suggestions of what can be in the bill. I'll go back to the regulations about the definition of public place, where one of the original drafters was the then minister to the legal advisor, her name was Patricia Lambert, to the then Minister of Health, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. And she had drafted a clause about a public place being any enclosed or semi-enclosed place that's open to the public. And she asked me directly for my input on that, partly because one of the things I studied is law. I never wanted to be a lawyer, but I did study some constitutional law. And the other is that technically, I'm a teacher of English. So understanding English and the structure of how things work is why then Patricia Lambert asked me about that definition. And my response to her was that semi means half. So if a place is 1% or 49% enclosed, or 51 to 99%, it just semi means 50%. So that wording was changed then to partially enclosed, which is much more clear in the law, because if you look up the word partially, it means in part, not wholly, not totally. And then it becomes easy to implement, because look up wherever you are now and say, is this place totally open? If the answer is no, then it's either totally enclosed or partially enclosed. And that made the understanding of the law. So our role in drafting legislation is perhaps the wrong word, but we gave input whenever we were asked by the authorities to give our input. And again, that's based on practical experience of implementing the bill on the streets, at the coalface. There were years that we went around the country training environmental health practitioners. And you'll see one of the things that we proposed in the bill is that the Labor Relations Act be added to the bill so that the labor relations officers who go to, because up to now they said, no, I'm not authorized to implement tobacco control and smoking control measures. But we want to put that in the bill so that labor relations officers, when they deal with the workplace, can very easily implement the bill. I think I've covered everything. Just glancing at my notes here, I think I've covered everything. The bottom line is that the bill and tobacco control and the use of electronic devices and all those things, whatever we want to call it, is a public health measure. It has to do with health. It's got nothing to do with profit. So our motivation is towards health and saving lives and individuals and families and the environment. It's got nothing to do with how much money we make. And if there's a sponsor out there who wants to sponsor TAG, we would be delighted, because all the burden has really been carried by the board, of which I'm a member as the CEO, of TAG. We do need funding, but we are not influenced by funders, as the tobacco industry is. When you look at the research, and you should look at research, by the way, and there'll be lots of organizations that give you research. Ask yourself who paid for that research. If it's the tobacco industry or anyone related to the tobacco industry, you've got to look at that with a very jaundiced eye. Perhaps take it with a pinch of salt, because it's likely to be biased. Mr. Chairman, Dr. Dlomo, and all honorable members, I hope that I've answered all your questions. If there is anything else, please route it to your secretary, who has my phone number and my email address. It's on the submissions anyway, and she will route them to me and I'll answer them for you if I've failed in any aspect to cover that now. But other than that, I thank you so much for providing me with the time and actually exhausting me to a degree because of the input that we have to make, but it has to do with public health. We want to save lives. Thank you so much, and I look forward to communicating with you, even on a line-by-line basis. Mr. Chairman, you said that I wouldn't be invited, but that's where I can give the most practical input verbally, answering questions live based on practical experience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Uklo. Your slot was today. You are still invited to join us when we also give other South Africans and institutions opportunities to engage with us. But when we also do a clause by clause, yes, it is an open meeting, but at that time, it is only the honorable members who will then be collating all the deliberations, including yours, processing them one line by line and clause by clause and coming to a conclusion. So we will actually make use of your input, incorporated into our broad consultative framework, and deliberate on it as part of those that are still to come. We want to thank you very much on this. You will be appraised by our secretary when we are also listening to other stakeholders in the due course. As we are actually in this morning discussing when we are going to start formally, we may not have any meetings next week, as we'll be doing oversight in a particular province, but the other week, we then would get back to our work. And then, yes, honorable members, we do take your comments, and thanks to the legal advisor, people will be given 7 days notice for invite, and they would have to work around that. We would probably not give them 2 days, 3 days short change. That is also an advice that comes in from our legal staff in Parliament, that anyone who has been given ample time to present will then not really come back and say, I was not given a slot. But if we also give them 2 days and they don't turn up, we cannot penalize them and not allow them to come in. We thank you very much, Mr. Uklo, because you are one of those that we probably didn't give ample time, but we are available to be here and participate and contribute. With that, we can then excuse you and ask Ms. Machalamba for the next agenda item. Ms. Machalamba?
Mr. Zungula's hand is up.
Oh, yes, Mr. Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Chair. Just before we move on to the next agenda item, Chair, perhaps in the next meeting, I really plead with you, maybe we discuss as to what is the best format to engage with the stakeholders, given the time constraints. Because, when stakeholders receive, let's say, 10 members ask questions and each ask 7 questions, that's like 70 questions. Now, when they respond, some of those questions will be missed, or maybe they may not be answered satisfactorily. And we may find that we may not want to further delay the meeting by, like after Mr. Ukos responded, that maybe we ask for follow-ups because it may take time. But it does take away our work when it comes to having quality engagements and quality understanding. So I think I did raise it previously to say, if we're to be given, let's say each member is given 5 minutes to engage, whereby there's direct questions and answers, maybe that would assist. So I just wanted to raise that maybe, Chair, as a proposal to see how best can we get quality engagement, quality answers, so that we're not just ticking a box to say there were questions asked, but there were no answers and there were no clear answers. If I can make an example, I asked Mr. Uko who funds the organization, and his assertion was that yes, they do need funding, but they are not influenced. But there was not a direct answer. But I did not want to belabor the point by wanting to have a follow-up, but I'm just raising it as a concern to say, if we do not find a way of getting quality answers, then it will become as if we're just ticking a box to say we're engaging the stakeholders. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Zungula, that is just one of the questions that he answered perfectly well. He said over the past 10 years, there's been this amount that came in from the foreign donation. That part he answered. You probably missed it, but he did. He even specified over how long has there not been any funding from other contributions. Over the past 10 years, he said a particular institution gave them this amount. Okay, but we'll engage if there's a need to do that. We will have to actually move on to the next agenda item, Ms. Machalamba.
Thank you, Chair. The next agenda item is the consideration and adoption of minutes.
You have a set of minutes, Ms. Machalamba, that you want to flight for us. Thank you very much. Honorable members, on the 5th of March, we had a presentation by the NHLS, and all members were present as indicated there. And check all your names are in. Honorable Zungula apologized. The presentation was outstanding because all other entities have presented to us except this one. Members interacted. Issues that were raised regarding the cyber security that has now since been attended to, the change of the board members, the chair, new chair, and other additional new board members. And the members have gone through this. We did raise our concerns that are captured in that. And therefore, in our resolution, the committee, having engaged with the presentation, made these following resolutions that the committee recommends that there should be a collaborative effort between NHL, Department of Health, in ensuring that provinces pay their debts to ensure financial sustainability of the entity. Advocate Mobile and those who are from the National Department of Health, which has said NHLS can't be the one chasing provinces alone. They should also be supported by yourselves in doing that work. And that the committee agreed that the entity should provide a progress report on addressing the targets which they had missed in their presentation. So, honorable members, we then adjourned. That was only that one item, presentation by NHLS and the discussions thereon. If we could then ask for members to adopt or consider adopting these minutes as a reflection of our discussions on the 5th of March. May I see by show of hand? Honorable Khumalo.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, I was present in that meeting. I therefore propose that we adopt these minutes. Thank you.
Honorable Khumalo proposes that we adopt the minutes as a true reflection of our discussion. Any seconder? Honorable Dr. Leroux.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second.
Okay, thank you very much. I also saw the hand of Honorable Keko, but we'll take you as the one formally seconding this set of.
Chair. Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. Machalamba, any other item?
That was the last item on the agenda, Chair. Thank you.
Honorable, that was the last agenda item on this program. Thank you very much for engagement. Myself and Ms. Machalamba will put a proposal to you, but we can also discuss this, honorable members, for those of you who will be coming into KwaZulu-Natal on the public hearings. After this meeting, honorable members, I'm going to be forwarding you two sets of documents. One is the formal TB Day at Ugu District, the program as is, where we are invited to be there. And we have already made arrangements that our availability for public hearings, for oversight starts a bit earlier. So if members are able to make their way to KwaZulu-Natal earlier than the 20 or on the 22nd, that would be great. There's another different program of the 22nd policy action plans, where we might be able to speak and give contributions as we are there. I've said they must give us where will be the MEC for Health and Health Team B, because that's where we might really be focused on. They will be in different parts of the province so that we can influence. So 23rd, it's the engagement with the other stakeholders, community members. I'm going to send that document to you. And on the 24th is a formal TB Day at Ugu Sports Grounds in the Ugu districts, further down towards Port Shepstone. And the logistics are being made so that when we start on the 24th, which is I think Monday, on the 24th, 25th on a Tuesday, we already have had those 2 days of engagement on the TB program. I would really encourage you members to work on this, because then we may be getting a slot there to engage. Parliamentarians all over Africa are actually focusing on the issues of TB and their citizens. Some of them are further saying, but we did not have as much TB in our country, let's say Botswana. Maybe Botswana did, was there also mining. We did not have so much TB in Mozambique if it were not of South African mines, where some of our people went in there to mine and came back with TB. But then we would really wish then that South Africa be the one in the forefront of talking about this and combating TB, reducing TB, eliminating TB in Africa, because they are the source. While there were gains for the TB mine, for the mines in gold and diamonds, there were unintended consequences of silicosis and TB. And therefore, let us be seen as South Africans, members of parliament, to play our role in advocacy and actions and pushing our executive to do much more than what they probably are doing. And also ourselves as members of parliament to say, I would not expect the minister to be in Kimberley at the same time being in Dar and in Stellenbosch. So let us all be available and play our role in advocacy and pushing forward for this. So I would really urge that we see our role as being very important, very lucky that we are formally invited to. We then find our way easy to go there, because we will already be in KwaZulu-Natal. It is the program of TB Day in KwaZulu-Natal. Let me end there, honorable members, and say the meeting is adjourned. We meet in the house and later next week. We will welcome you in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you.